Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie The Princess and the Frog in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called The Princess and the Frog. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it. All the interesting facts about this movie in today's video I'm going to tell you. I'm also going to give you all the information on which OT platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. Budget box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film's storyline. Starcast actors' performance in the film and which character has played which role. That's why I request you, friends, to watch this video till the end, so let's start the video. The Princess and the Frog is a 2009 American animated musical romantic fantasy comedy film produced by Walt Disney Animation Studios and released by Walt Disney Pictures. It is inspired in part by the 2002 novel The Frog Princess by E.D. Baker, which in turn is based on the German folktale The Frog Prince, as collected by the Brothers Grimm. The film was directed by John Musker and Ron Clements and produced by Peter Del Vecho, from a screenplay that Clements and Musker co-wrote with Rob Edwards. The directors also co-wrote the story with the writing team of Greg Erb and Jason Oremland. The film stars the voices of Anika Noni Rose, Bruno Campos, Michael Leon Woolley, Jim Cummings, Jennifer Cody, John Goodman, Keith David, Peter Bartlett, Jennifer Lewis, Oprah Winfrey, and Terrence Howard. Set in New Orleans during the 1920s, the film tells the story of a hardworking waitress named Tiana who dreams of opening her own restaurant. After kissing Prince Naveen, who has been turned into a frog by the evil voodoo witch doctor Facilier, Tiana becomes a frog as well, and the two must find a way to turn human again before it is too late. The Princess and the Frog began production in July 2006 under the working title The Frog Princess. It marked Disney's brief return to traditional animation, as it was the mainstream animation studio's first traditionally animated film since Home on the Range 2004. Musker and Clements, directors of Disney's The Great Mouse Detective 1986, The Little Mermaid 1989, Aladdin 1992, Hercules 1997, and Treasure Planet 2002, returned to Disney to direct The Princess and the Frog. The studio returned to a Broadway musical-style format frequently used during the Disney Renaissance, and the film features a score and songs composed and conducted by Randy Newman, well known for his musical involvement in Pixar films such as the Toy Story franchise. The Princess and the Frog premiered at the Roy E. Disney Animation Building on the Walt Disney Studios lot in Burbank on November 15, 2009, and first opened in a limited release in New York City and Los Angeles on November 25th, followed by its wide release on December 11th. The film received largely positive reviews from critics, who praised the animation, particularly the revival of the hand-drawn form, characters, music, voice acting, particularly David's, and themes. However, it was criticized for its depiction of Louisiana voodoo and alleged historical negationism of its depiction of the southern United States during the Jim Crow era. It was a qualified success at the box office. It somewhat underperformed Disney's targets, yet finished in first place in North America on its opening weekend, and grossed around $271 million worldwide, becoming, in the process, Disney's most successful traditionally animated film since Lilo and Stitch in 2002. It received 3 Oscar nominations at the 82nd Academy Awards, 1 for Best Animated Feature and 2 for Best Original Song for. Plot: in New Orleans during the Roaring Twenties, a young woman named Tiana dreams of opening a restaurant. She works 2 waitress jobs to earn the money she needs, leaving no time for a social life. Naveen, the arrogant prince of Maldonia, arrives in New Orleans. His parents have cut him off from the family fortune, so he intends to marry Charlotte LaBouffe, Tiana's best friend. Charlotte's wealthy father hosts a masquerade ball in Naveen's honor. Charlotte hires Tiana to make beignets for the party and pays her enough money to buy a dilapidated mill to convert into her restaurant. Naveen and his valet, Lawrence, encounter Dr. Facilier, an evil voodoo witch doctor who plans to rule New Orleans. Facilier transforms Naveen into a frog and Lawrence into a doppelganger of Naveen, using a voodoo talisman containing Naveen's blood. Facilier intends for the disguised Lawrence to marry Charlotte, then to kill her father with a voodoo doll so he can gain the LaBouffe fortune. At the ball, Tiana learns she has been outbid for the mill and accidentally spills food on her outfit, so Charlotte lends her a princess costume. Feeling disheartened, she begins wishing on a star when Naveen appears in frog form. Assuming Tiana is a princess, he asks her to kiss him, believing her kiss will break the spell. Tiana reluctantly agrees, but Naveen remains a frog, and Tiana is transformed into a frog herself. The two are chased into a nearby bayou, where they meet a jazz-loving alligator named Louis. When they explain their predicament, he tells them about Mama Odie, another voodoo practitioner who lives in the bayou. Naveen convinces Louis to take him and Tiana to see Mama Odie and ask her how the spell can be broken. Since Louis does not know how to travel to Mama Odie, a Cajun firefly named Ray helps the trio. During the journey, Tiana and Naveen begin developing romantic feelings for each other, especially after Naveen learns to be more responsible. Meanwhile, the talisman containing Naveen's blood runs out. Facilier asks his friends on the other side, a legion of voodoo spirits, to help retrieve Naveen, offering them the souls of the city's population once he succeeds in taking over. And they grant him an army of shadow demons to do his bidding. The demons discover Tiana and her group in the bayou. Mama Odie rescues the group. Mama Odie discovers the spell can only be broken if a princess kisses Naveen. Tiana realizes that since Charlotte's father has been crowned Mardi Gras king, Charlotte will be a princess until midnight. The group hitches a ride on a steamboat back to New Orleans, during which Naveen tells Ray about his love for Tiana and plans to propose marriage to her. After talking to Tiana, Naveen selflessly decides against proposing, since transforming him and Tiana into humans and financing Tiana's restaurant is contingent on him kissing and marrying Charlotte. The shadow demons capture Naveen and bring him to Facilier to replenish the talisman with Naveen's blood. After Ray tells Tiana of Naveen's love for her, Tiana heads to the Mardi Gras parade to find Naveen, only to see the disguised Lawrence marrying Charlotte. Ray rescues the real Naveen, steals the talisman, and gives it to Tiana, just before Facilier swats him to the ground and crushes him beneath his foot, mortally wounding him. Facilier offers to make Tiana's dream come true in exchange for the talisman. Realizing that she would be dishonoring her father by accepting, Tiana destroys the talisman. With Facilier's plan foiled, the voodoo spirits drag him into their world for failing to pay back his debt. After Lawrence is arrested, Tiana reveals her love to Naveen. Charlotte is moved by this and agrees to kiss Naveen so he and Tiana can be human together. But as the clock strikes midnight, Charlotte is no longer a princess, so Tiana and Naveen remain frogs. Ray dies, but during the funeral, Tiana and Naveen arrange for him. He is reincarnated as a star. Tiana and Naveen are married by Mama Odie, making Tiana a princess, restoring both to human form. They later return to New Orleans to legally marry and open Tiana's restaurant. Voice cast: Anika Noni Rose as Tiana, a 19-year-old African-American waitress and aspiring chef restaurateur. She is an intelligent, hardworking, and independent young woman, but works so hard that she often forgets about other things in life, such as love, fun, and family. Mark Henn was the supervising animator for Tiana. Bruno Campos as Prince Naveen, the Prince of Maldonia. Naveen is a 20-year-old musician and playboy who has been cut off from his family's riches until he learns the value of responsibility. Randy Haycock served as the supervising animator of Naveen in both human and frog form. Keith David as Dr. Facilier, also known as the Shadow Man, a voodoo bokor, witch doctor, who plans to rule New Orleans with help from his friends on the other side, and the main antagonist of the film. He is depicted in the image of Baron Samedi and/or Ged Nebo wearing a tailcoat and top hat. Bruce W. Smith, supervising animator of Dr. Facilier, referred to the character as the love child of Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians, 1961, and Captain Hook from Peter Pan, 1953. Smith was nominated for the Annie Award for character animation in a feature production for his work. Michael Leon Woolley as Louis, a friendly yet neurotic trumpet-playing alligator whose dream is to join a jazz band. His name comes from the famous jazz artist and trumpeter, Louis Armstrong. Terence Blanchard did the trumpet playing for Louis. Eric Goldberg, the supervising animator of Louis and other miscellaneous characters 6, won the Annie Award for character animation in a feature production for his work on the film. Jennifer Cody as Charlotte Lottie LaBouffe, a 19-year-old wealthy European-American debutante and Tiana's best friend since childhood, who dreams of marrying a prince. Though she is initially spoiled and self-centered, she has a heart of gold and cares deeply for Tiana's well-being, going as far as giving up her chance to be a princess when she sees that Prince Naveen and Tiana are truly in love. Nick Ranieri served as the supervising animator of Charlotte as an adult in Child 6. Jennifer Cody won the Annie Award for voice acting in a feature production for her performance. Jim Cummings as Ray, a middle-aged Cajun firefly. He and his vast family are close friends with Mama Odie, so he offers to help the frogs get to her. Ray has an unrequited love for the evening star, which he believes is another firefly named Evangeline, a reference to the 19th century Longfellow poem. Mike Surrey was the supervising animator for Ray. Ray's name comes from the blind pianist Ray Charles. Peter Bartlett as Lawrence, Prince Naveen's valet, whom Dr. Facilier recruits as a partner in his scheme by transforming him to look like Naveen using a blood charm. Anthony DeRosa was the supervising animator for the Lawrence character, whose design was influenced by the Mr. Smee character from Peter Pan. Jennifer Lewis as Mama Odie, a blind, 197-year-old voodoo Bokor, who serves as the film's fairy godmother figure. Andreas Deja was the supervising animator for both Mama Odie and her pet snake Juju, and was nominated for the Annie Award for character animation in a feature production. Oprah Winfrey as Eudora, Tiana's mother, who wants to see her happy and concerned that Tiana focuses too much on her dream of owning a restaurant. Ruben A. Aquino animated both Eudora and her husband, James. Terrence Howard as James, Tiana's father, who helped instill a strong work ethic in Tiana. John Goodman as Eli Big Daddy LaBouffe, a very wealthy southern sugar mill owner and father of Charlotte LaBouffe. While he spoils Charlotte with everything she asks for, he is a loving and generous man and loves Tiana's cooking. Duncan Marjoribanks was the supervising animator for LaBouffe. Richie Montgomery, Don Hall, and Paul Briggs as Reggie, Darnell, and Two Fingers, 3 bumbling frog hunters who try to catch Tiana and Naveen as frogs. Their resemblance to the Three Stooges has been noted. Corey Burton and Jerry Kernian as the Fenner brothers, 2 antagonistic real estate agents who eventually sell Tiana the sugar mill under duress after initially refusing because someone else was offering to pay for it in cash and because they believed Tiana could not manage it because of her background. Kevin Michael Richardson and Emeril Lagasse as Ian and Marlon, 2 of a congregation of wild and hot-tempered alligators who try to eat Tiana and Naveen while they are transformed into frogs. The film's composer Randy Newman makes a brief cameo as Ray's cousin Randy. The character is also designed to resemble Newman physically. Production. Early development. Disney had once announced that 2004's Home on the Range would be their last traditionally animated film. After the company's acquisition of Pixar in 2006, Ed Catmull and John Lasseter, the new president and chief creative officer of Disney Animation Studios, reversed this decision and reinstated hand-drawn animation at the studio. Many animators who had either been laid off or had left the studio when the traditional animation units were dissolved in 2003 were located and rehired for the project. Lasseter also brought back directors Ron Clements and John Musker, whose earlier works include The Great Mouse Detective, 1986, The Little Mermaid, 1989, Aladdin, 1992, Hercules, 1997, and Treasure Planet, 2002. The duo had left the company in 2005, but Lasseter requested their return to Disney to direct and write the film, and had let them choose the style of animation, traditional or CGI, they wanted to use. The film's story began development by merging 2 projects in development at Disney and Pixar at the time, both based around the Frog Prince fairy tale. One of the projects was based on E.D. Baker's The Frog Princess, in which the story's heroine, Princess Emma, kisses a prince-turned-frog, Prince Edric, only to become a frog herself. The other was based on Ralph Eggleston's pitch of The Frog Prince set in gangster-era Chicago. Jürgen Klubian separately claimed that a story he was developing at Pixar, tentatively titled The Spirit of New Orleans, served as inspiration for the film. The Princess and the Frog returns to the musical film format used in many of the previously successful Disney animated films, with a style Musker and Clements declared, like with Aladdin and The Little Mermaid, had inspiration from Golden Age Disney features such as Cinderella, 1950. Musker and Clements thought that given so many fairy tales were set in Europe, they could do an American fairy tale. They stated that they chose New Orleans as a tribute to the history of the city, for its magical qualities, and because it was Lasseter's favorite city. The directors spent 10 days in Louisiana before starting to write the film. The Princess and the Frog was originally announced as The Frog Princess in July 2006, and early concepts and songs were presented to the public at Anchor Bay Entertainment's annual shareholders meeting in March 2007. These announcements drew criticism from African American media outlets due to elements of the Frog Princess story, characters, and settings considered distasteful. African American critics disapproved of the original name for the heroine, Maddie, due to its similarity to the derogatory word term mammy. Also protested were Maddie's original career as a chambermaid. He chose to have the black heroine's love interest be a non-black prince, and the use of a black male voodoo witch doctor as the film's villain. The Frog Princess title was also thought by critics to be a slur on French people. Also questioned was the film's setting of New Orleans, which had been heavily damaged by Hurricane Katrina in 2005, resulting in the expulsion of a large number of mostly black residents. Critics claimed the choice of New Orleans as the setting for a Disney film with a black heroine was an affront to the Katrina victims' plight. In response to these early criticisms, the film's title was changed in May 2007 from The Frog Princess to The Princess and the Frog. The name Maddie was changed to Tiana, and the character's occupation was altered from chambermaid to waitress. Talk show host Oprah Winfrey was hired as a technical consultant for the film, leading to her taking a voice acting role in the film as Tiana's mother, Eudora. Writing and themes. The head of story, Don Hall, described the plot as a fairy tale, twisted enough that it seems new and fresh, with a kingdom that is a modern city, a handsome prince that is a knuckle-headed playboy, and a variation on the fairy godmother with Mama Odie. Co-writer Rob Edwards also said, "The Princess and the Frog was a princess movie for people who don't like princess movies." As the writers thought Tiana's character motivation of simply dreaming of having her own restaurant was not appealing enough, they expanded so it was her father's as well, with the extra philosophy of food bringing people together from all walks of life. Musker and Clements stated that while Tiana already starts as a sympathetic character, the events of the plot make her understand things in a deeper level and change people around her. Both protagonists would learn from each other, Naveen to take responsibilities, Tiana to enjoy life, as well as figuring from Ray's passion for Evangeline that the perfect balance is brought by having someone you love to share the experience. Tiana became the first African-American Disney princess. Tiana was inspired in part by famed restaurateur Leah Chase, whom Clements and Musker met on their research trip to New Orleans. Clements elaborated, "There's a woman in New Orleans named Lee Chase, who was a waitress and ultimately opened a restaurant with her husband. We met with her and we talked with her, and she went to kind of into her story, her philosophy about food, which is a big element of the movie." Voice cast. On December 1, 2006, a detailed casting call was announced for the film at the Manhattan Theater Source Forum. The casting call states the film as being an American fairy tale musical set in New Orleans during the 1926 Jazz Age and provides a detailed list of the film's major characters. In February 2007, it was reported that Dreamgirls actresses Jennifer Hudson and Anika Noni were top contenders for the voice of Tiana, and that Alicia Keys directly contacted then Walt Disney Studios chairman Dick Cook about voicing the role. It was later reported that Tyra Banks was being considered for the role. By April 2007, it was confirmed that Rose would be voicing Tiana. 3 months later, it was reported that Keith David was cast as Dr. Facilier, the villain of the film. Animation and design. Clements and Musker had agreed early on that the style they were aiming for was primarily that of Lady and the Tramp, 1955, a film which they and John Lasseter feel represents the pinnacle of Disney's style. After that, everything started becoming more stylized, like Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians, which are fantastic films as well, but there's a particular style to Lady and the Tramp that's so classically Disney. Lady and the Tramp also heavily informed the style of the New Orleans scenes, while Disney's Bambi, 1942, served as the template for the Bayou scenes. Bambi was described as a stylistic reference for the painted backgrounds, as according to art director Ian Gooding, Bambi painted what it feels like to be in the forest instead of the forest. So, The Princess and the Frog would in turn try capturing the essence of roaming through New Orleans. The former trend in Disney's hand-drawn features where the characters and cinematography were influenced by a CGI look had been abandoned. Andreas Deja, a veteran Disney animator who supervised the character of Mama Odie, says, "I always thought that maybe we should distinguish ourselves to go back to what 2D is good at, which is focusing on what the line can do rather than volume, which is a CG kind of thing. So we are doing less extravagant Treasure Planet kind of treatments. You have to create a world, but we're doing it more simply. What we're trying to do with Princess and the Frog is hook up with things that the old guys did earlier. It's not going to be graphic." Deja also mentioned that Lasseter was aiming for the Disney sculptural and dimensional look of the 1950s. All those things that were non-graphic, which means go easy on the straight lines and have one volume flow into the other, an organic feel to the drawing. Lasseter also felt that traditional animation created more character believability. For example, with Louie the Alligator, created by Eric Goldberg, Lasseter said, "It's the believability of this large character being able to move around quite like that." Choreographer Betsy Baitus was brought by the directors to lead a team of eccentric dancers that gave reference to make each character a different style of movement. The character design tried to create beautiful drawings through subtle shapes, particularly for most characters being human. For the frog versions of Tiana and Naveen, while the animators started with realistic designs, they eventually went for stylized designs, removing all that is unappealing in frogs. Similar to Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio, 1940. Toon Boom Animation's Toon Boom Harmony computer software was used as the main software package for the production of the film. As the computer animation production system, CAPS, system that Disney developed with Pixar in the 1980s for use on their previous traditionally animated films, had become now outdated by 2004. The Harmony software was augmented with a number of plugins to provide CAPS-like effects, such as shading on cheeks and smoke effects. The reinstated traditional unit's first production, a 2007 Goofy cartoon short entitled How to Hook Up Your Home Theater, was partly animated without paper by using Harmony and Wacom Cintiq pressure-sensitive tablets. The character animators found some difficulty with this approach and decided to use traditional paper and pencil drawings, which were then scanned into the computer systems for The Princess and the Frog. The one exception to the new Toon Boom Harmony pipeline was the Almost There dream sequence, which utilized an Art Deco graphic style based on the art of Harlem Renaissance painter Aaron Douglas. Supervised by Eric Goldberg and designed by Sue Nichols, 43, the Almost There sequence's character animation was done on paper without going through the cleanup animation department and scanned directly into Photoshop. The artwork was then enhanced to affect the appearance of painted strokes and fills and combined with backgrounds using Adobe After Effects. The visual effects and backgrounds for the film were created digitally using Cintiq tablet displays. Marlon West, one of Disney's veteran animation visual effects supervisors, says about the production, "Those guys had this bright idea to bring back hand-drawn animation, but everything had to be started again from the ground up. One of the first things we did was focus on producing shorts to help us reintroduce the 2D pipeline. I worked as VFX supervisor on the Goofy short, How to Hook Up Your Home Theater. It was a real plus for the effects department, so we went paperless for The Princess and the Frog." The backgrounds were painted digitally using Adobe Photoshop. and many of the architectural elements were based upon 3D models built in Autodesk Maya. Much of the cleanup animation, digital ink and paint, and compositing were outsourced to third-party companies in Orlando, Florida, Premise Entertainment, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Yauza Animation, and Brooklyn, São Paulo, Brazil, HGN Produções. Music, main article, The Princess and the Frog, soundtrack. Looking back on the experience 7 years later, Lasseter told Variety, "I was determined to bring back hand-drawn animation because I felt it was such a heritage of the Disney studio, and I love the art form. I was stunned that Princess didn't do better. We dug into it and did a lot of research and focus groups. It was viewed as old-fashioned by the audience." Despite the absence of traditional animated feature films after the release of Winnie the Pooh, Disney Animation has been using both media for the sake of experimenting with new techniques and styles. In 2019, after Lasseter left Disney, Jennifer Lee, the succeeding CCO of Walt Disney Animation Studios, producer Peter Del Vecho, and director Chris Buck confirmed that making another 2D animated film is still possible, and that the different styles are driven by the filmmakers who chose what method to use to tell their stories. Since the film's original release, it has had success on streaming platforms and with merchandise sales. Other media, manga. A manga adaptation of the film was released to tie into the film's Japanese release. Theme parks. Tiana, Naveen, and Dr. Facilier appear as meet-and-greet characters on Main Street, USA, Liberty Square, and in Frontierland at the Disney parks, while Louis appears during parades or live shows. Theme park ride. Main article, Tiana's Bayou Adventure. In June 2020, Disney announced that the Splash Mountain theme park attraction, which is themed to Disney's 1946 film Song of the South, would be rethemed based on The Princess and the Frog in Frontierland at Disneyland and Magic Kingdom, which was stated to have had been in development since 2019. The announcement came amid the ongoing George Floyd protests and online petitions to change the theme of Splash Mountain. The New York Times reported that Disney executives had privately discussed removing the attraction's Song of the South theme for at least 5 years, before putting into development the Princess and the Frog theme. The attraction's storyline takes place after the events of the film, with Tiana hosting a party for the people of New Orleans during carnival season. Tiana discovers that due to a mix-up, the celebration is missing a band and needs the guests' help to find one, as they join her and Louis on a trip to the bayou to search for musical critters. In June 2022, Anika Noni Rose mentioned during an interview on Live with Kelly and Ryan that she has been involved with discussions with Disney on what they want the attraction to be like. In July 2022, during the Essence Music Festival in New Orleans, Disney announced that the attraction would be called Tiana's Bayou Adventure, setting an opening date of late 2024 at both parks. At the D23 Expo in September 2022, it was confirmed that Rose, Bruno Campos, Michael Leon Woolley, and Jennifer Lewis would be reprising their roles for the ride. The Magic Kingdom version of Splash Mountain closed in January 2023, while the Disneyland version closed in May 2023. Tiana's Bayou Adventure opened at Magic Kingdom on June 28, 2024, and is scheduled to open on November 15, 2024 at Disneyland. Films and television, upcoming sequel television series. In December 2020, Disney announced a television spin-off titled Tiana is in development for Disney+. It was also announced that Anika Noni Rose, who voiced Tiana in the film, would be reprising her role in the series. On November 12, 2021, Stella Magee was announced as writer and director, making her the first African-American director to helm a Walt Disney Animation Studios project, but was replaced in those capacities by Joyce Sherry by October 2023. Then Walt Disney Animation Studios' Chief Creative Officer Jennifer Lee contacted Magee for the project following the latter's attempt to pitch a live-action remake of The Princess and the Frog. The series will center on Tiana as she explores her city of New Orleans. A first look of Tiana was revealed in 2021, with the series originally scheduled to release in 2022. The release date was later changed to 2023 and eventually 2024. In March 2023, the show's page changed to Coming Soon to Disney+, with mention of a date removed. The series will be among the first spin-offs of a Walt Disney Animation Studios film to be produced by the studio itself rather than Disney Television Animation. Animation services will be provided by Walt Disney Animation Studios' Burbank and Vancouver studios, with storyboarding and pre-production also handled at the Burbank studio. Potential live-action adaptation. In January 2022, Jennifer Lee revealed that Stella Meggy, originally the writer and director of Tiana, wanted to develop a live-action adaptation of the film. Others, Tiana made a guest appearance on Sophia the First in the second season episode Winter's Gift. Alternate versions of Tiana, Prince Naveen, Eudora, and Dr. Facilier appear in the 7th season of Once Upon a Time. Maldonia also appears as a realm in New Fairy Tale Land. Tiana is featured in the 2018 film Ralph Breaks the Internet, alongside all of the other Disney princesses. However, earlier promo images and trailers from the film showed that her appearance was depicted with a lighter skin tone, a narrower nose, and European features. This led to several backlashes from the viewers on social media, as these drew her appearance away from that expected of African Americans. Disney contacted Anika Noni Rose and the advocacy group Color of Change to redesign Tiana for Ralph Breaks the Internet to make sure that she more closely resembles her actual appearance, which was revealed in the second trailer. In the Descendants franchise, Dr. Facilier appears in the novel The Isle of the Lost, being the principal of Dragon Hall, the school for villains' children. Facilier's teen daughter, Freddie, appears as one of the main characters in the animated series Descendants: Wicked World. Dr. Facilier, played by Jamal Sims, appears in Disney Channel's 2019 original film Descendants 3, along with his other teen daughter, Celia. Tiana is one of the main characters in LEGO's 2023 animated special, LEGO Disney Princess: The Castle Quest. Like other Walt Disney Animation Studios characters, the main characters of the film have cameo appearances in the 2023 short film Once Upon a Studio. Video games. Disney announced on June 4, 2009, that they would release a video game inspired by the film, and it was released in November 2009, exclusively for Wii and Nintendo DS platforms. It has been officially described as an adventure through the exciting world of New Orleans in a family-oriented video game, featuring events from the film and challenges for Princess Tiana. Tiana, Prince Naveen, Louis, Mama Odie, along with Juju, Eudora, Charlotte LaBouffe, and Dr. Facilier appear as playable characters to unlock for a limited time in the World Builder video game Disney Magic Kingdoms, along with some attractions based on locations in the film. In the game, the characters are involved in new storylines that serve as a continuation of the events of the film. An alternate version of Tiana appears as a playable character in the video game Disney Mirrorverse 2022. See also List of animated feature-length films, List of traditional animated feature films, List of Disney theatrical animated features, List of Disney animated films based on fairy tales, List of Walt Disney Animation Studios films. The Swan Princess. Angry fans of the smaller budget movie complained that the way Naveen, in frog form, looks and behaves similarly to Jean Bob, Odette's French frog friend, and the sphere of water when Facilier's spell is broken looks just like Odette's transformation. Dreams do come true in New Orleans. After years of box office bombs, moderate disappointments, and a lot of computer animation, Disney returned to basics in 2009 with The Princess and the Frog. Arguments can be made regarding whether Disney should stick with what works or experiment with different mediums and genres, but I think both work for the most part. While The Princess and the Frog attempts to recapture a lot of the things people love about and associate with Disney, it also represents several firsts for the studio. Of course, Tiana is the first Black Disney princess, and basically the first animated Black Disney character of any consequence. Barring sidekicks like the Muses from Hercules and Cobra Bubbles from Lilo and Stitch, Disney feature animation hasn't featured many Black characters or put them in the best light. This film also breaks away from the traditional Disney Alan Menken sound, employing Randy Newman to compose the songs and score. It wasn't only the first traditionally animated Disney film in 5 years, but the first Disney movie featuring a princess since 2001's Atlantis, and Tiana was first to be branded as a Disney princess since 1998's Mulan. Reaching simultaneously for nostalgia and progress, The Princess and the Frog had a lot to live up to. The Princess and the Frog begins with Eudora, Oprah Winfrey, reading the story of the Frog Prince to her daughter Tiana and Charlotte, Tiana's best friend and daughter of Big Daddy LaBeouf, John Goodman. Ball-gown-clad Charlotte is enamored with the story and wants to marry a prince someday, while Tiana is mortified by the very thought of kissing a frog. At home, Tiana cooks with her father, who tells her that dreams can come true, but that she can't forget what's most important and that she must work toward her dream. Flash forward, and it's the 1920s, and Tiana is an adult and working double shifts as a waitress, going from one job to another. Her father has passed away, but she scrapes every penny to open up her own restaurant, just like they had planned together. Tiana, James, the Princess and the Frog, Eudora urges Tiana to slow down some and enjoy life, and emphasizes to her the importance of love. However, Tiana has bigger things in mind and has no time for fun, no interest in finding her own Prince Charming. Charlotte and Big Daddy hire Tiana to cater a party, giving her enough money to buy the building she wants for her restaurant. However, the sellers attend the party and tell her she's been outbid, citing her background as additional reasoning for not selling to her. Devastated, Tiana goes out into the moonlight and wishes on a star, something she had previously left to Charlotte. Incidentally, a frog appears right next to her, prompting her to sarcastically offer a kiss. Much to her shock, though, the frog does speak, claiming to be the visiting Prince Naveen of Moldonia. Being that Tiana is not a princess, her kiss turns her into a frog too. The two go on a quest along the bayou to voodoo woman Mama Odie, all the while avoiding Shadow Man Dr. Facilier, the con man who transformed Naveen in the first place. This was done as part of a ploy in which Naveen's disgruntled manservant was transformed to look like him in an attempt to get him married to Charlotte and get her father's wealth. The curse can only be broken with a kiss from a princess, and their only option is Charlotte, who will be a princess for just 24 hours because Big Daddy was voted king of the Mardi Gras parade. Will Naveen be able to kiss her in time, restoring his and Tiana's human forms and defeating the Shadow Man? This is my main problem with the movie. The plot is insane in the third act. Trying to explain the sequence of events in the last 30 minutes or so is legitimately perplexing. The beginning feels perfectly fluent and functions as a series of great setups. Tiana is disgusted by kissing frogs, loves cooking with her dad, who encourages big dreams and hard work, and we get an excellent feel for the setting and characters. But as the film goes on, things become increasingly complicated. I'm torn between just enjoying the ride and actively following along. I do think it's important for the plot to feel simple and easy to understand, no matter how many things are going on. The best movies are able to tie complex storylines together in a way that feels succinct. That being said, while the story is a major element of a film, I don't consider it the most important. Tiana, Dr. Facilier, Shadow Man, the Princess and the Frog, that designation goes to the film's characters, and this film has an amazing cast of them. Tiana is one of Disney's most grounded protagonists, and her determination to reach her goals through hard work is admirable. I really like that. Much like Mulan, they gave Tiana realistic flaws and misconceptions to work through. She starts out believing that work is what's most important, and that as long as she gets her restaurant, she'll be perfectly happy. I can imagine people taking issue with Tiana's arc involving falling in love, because that's exactly the kind of stuff people tend to criticize the older Disney films for. However, Disney is good at romance. I enjoy the way they show their characters progressing from annoyance to enamorment, and I think there is some truth in saying that there's no use working yourself to death if you don't have someone to share the reward with. Her idolization of her father is also endearing. We only get one scene with him, but it's a particularly effective one. It feels very realistic the way he tries to emphasize the importance of family and hard work, but Tiana only hears part of his message at the time. It's also heartbreaking when Shadow Man points out just how hard her father worked and what little reward he got until Tiana points out that he had what he needed, which was a loving family. This film screams classic Disney while also putting its own spin on things, and I think it works well. Unlike Frozen, The Princess and the Frog knows how to juggle tradition with innovation, all the while telling its own story effectively, with a lovable heroine who experiences meaningful change throughout her journey. You heard it here, folks. Tiana is Disney's most interesting and nuanced female character since Mulan. But the other characters in The Princess and the Frog also fill their roles out nicely. I really like Naveen, and he also has a meaningful character arc. He starts out as a carefree prince who has been cut off by his family for partying too hard and being unproductive, always with a different girl on each arm rather than settling down. Tiana teaches him small things like how to mince mushrooms, but he also comes to see that, in finding true love with her, he doesn't need the high life to be happy. He even pledges at one point to work 3 jobs if that's what it takes to get Tiana her restaurant. I also enjoy the scene when they're making dinner, and he remarks that, despite leading a charmed life, it all meant nothing once he realized he never learned how to do anything for himself. Tiana, Charlotte, The Princess and the Frog. Tiana's friend Charlotte is hilarious. Seriously, everything this girl says and does is a highlight. I have heard some people say it's bad that they made the White family good people who support Tiana and help her, but I honestly think that's ridiculous. Not all rich people are bad, not all white people are bad, etc. Besides, this is a Disney movie. They're not going to delve into race and class any more than they do here. This is actually the best female-female friendship in any animated Disney film. Pocahontas and her friend Nakoma barely spoke, and we never learned much about them or their relationship or even how they became friends. Charlotte and Tiana obviously love each other, and we can see why and how well they get along. They feel like real friends, not just 2 characters in a movie. And there are several key moments in the film when they could so easily have made Charlotte unsympathetic, turning her into a stereotypical rich girl. But she's so quirky and likable and very different to Tiana. I love the irony of her being the princess freak, always wearing fancy dresses and manhunting, while Tiana gets the fairy tale ending. Charlotte even looks more like a traditional Disney princess with her blonde updo and pink wardrobe. She could also function as a stand-in for real-life princess freaks. Villain Dr. Facilier is voiced by Keith David, and he's great here, as always. This character feels like he belongs in the tradition of great Disney villains. His song, Friends on the Other Side, is so good and really creates an interesting atmosphere. The animation in this sequence alone justifies seeing the movie. The songs and score by Randy Newman are very different from anything Disney's ever done with their musicals, and it works out great. There are a couple of songs I don't care for as much, but Almost There and Down in New Orleans are amazing and get better with each watch-listen. Also of note, this is the first animated Disney film since Beauty and the Beast where each speaking actor provides their character's singing voice. The animation is beautiful too, and there's a great use of color across different scenes and moods. This movie has a great ambiance, and it's very distinct. It wasn't a huge success, but I don't think it's because people don't like black-led films or traditional animation. Honestly, Disney was stupid for releasing it when they did. The Princess and the Frog premiered in December of 2009, putting it in direct competition with Avatar, Twilight, New Moon, Sherlock Holmes, and more. There also wasn't very much marketing for the film, particularly since it was the return to that classic Disney feel people were missing. I really like The Princess and the Frog. The plot gets messy late in the film, and there are times when the pacing feels off, but other than that, most of it works. The characters are interesting and different from those in any of Disney's other movies, but not disrespectful or parodic towards them. Tiana's work ethic reminds me of Snow White and Cinderella, the main difference being that the traditional female characters worked for the joy of working and the happiness of others, and in some cases because they were forced to, while the modern woman works to achieve her own tangible, out-of-home success. This feels like an evolution rather than a rejection of what built Disney in the first place. I think it's fair to compare The Princess and the Frog to The Little Mermaid because it changed what a Disney princess could be while reviving the classic Disney fairy tale. It's not a flawless film, but overall represents a great triumph. The Princess and the Frog is a 2009 American animated musical comedy adventure fantasy film based on E.D. Baker's novel The Frog Princess, which was in turn inspired by the Brothers Grimm's fairy tale The Frog Prince. The film opened in limited release in New York City and Los Angeles on November 25, 2009, followed by its wide release on December 11, 2009. It's the 49th animated feature in the Disney animated canon and the first to be traditionally animated since 2004's Home on the Range. The film was directed by John Musker and Ron Clements, best known for The Little Mermaid and Aladdin, with songs and score composed by Randy Newman. Tiana, the main character, is also notable as Disney's first African-American princess. The film, which began production under the working title The Frog Princess, is a well-known fairy tale, Broadway-style musical set in and around New Orleans at the height of the Roaring Twenties. It centers on a hard-working waitress named Tiana who dreams of opening a restaurant. After sharing a kiss with a prince that had been transformed into a frog by an evil witch doctor, Tiana must embark on a journey with the prince to find a voodoo priestess to break the spell as she too falls victim to it. The film was both marketed and praised as a return to form for Walt Disney Animation Studios, with various film critics, pundits, and historians crediting The Princess and the Frog as the first film to have ignited what is widely considered to be Disney's New Age renaissance, as well as the resurgence of critically acclaimed animated fairy tales and musicals. This would be confirmed by Disney in 2017 during the 80th anniversary event of Walt Disney Animation. Since the release of The Princess and the Frog, the characters have appeared in later films, video games, theme park attractions, albums, and various other media. Tiana has since been inducted into the highly successful Disney Princess franchise, while Dr. Facilier has appeared extensively in the Disney Villains franchise. In 2020, Disney announced that a sequel series that will focus on Tiana's adventures after the film is set to premiere on Disney Plus in 2024. The movie begins with a bright star shining in the Louisiana night sky. We hear the voice of Tiana singing, telling us that anything is possible if you wish upon the evening star. We are then taken to the very pink and frilly bedroom of young Charlotte LaBouffe, who is sitting beside a young Tiana as they listen to Tiana's seamstress mother, Eudora, tell the tale of the Frog Prince, while she puts the finishing touches on a dress she is making for Charlotte. Charlotte is entranced by the story, while Tiana is clearly disgusted at the thought of kissing a frog and vows to never kiss one. Charlotte then puts a frog mask on her white kitten and starts pushing it in Tiana's face. But when Charlotte starts kissing the white kitten after Tiana refuses to do so, it jumps up and gets stuck on the ceiling with fright. Eudora then gets it off the ceiling and takes the mask off the horrified white kitten. Charlotte's father, Eli Big Daddy LaBouffe, arrives home with a new puppy for his spoiled daughter, while Eudora and Tiana head home. We quickly learn that Tiana and her friend Charlotte are definitely from two different worlds as the young girl and her mother head home to their tiny shack where Tiana's father, James, waits for them. Tiana and her father laugh together as they whip up a batch of his famous gumbo and talk about their shared dream of one day opening a restaurant. Tiana's father reminds her that wishing can only take you so far, and you have to get the rest of the way yourself through hard work. He makes her promise that she'll never lose sight of what's really important in life. Tiana makes a wish on the evening star that their dream will one day come true, only to become frightened by a frog that appeared right after. Several years later, Tiana is now a beautiful young woman all grown up, working 2 waitressing jobs and saving up all her tips in a bedroom drawer, hoping to earn enough money to open the restaurant she and her father had always dreamed of. Before heading off to her second job, she plants a kiss on a photo of her father. It is implied that he was killed in World War I, telling him that they'll be there to their dream soon. As Tiana heads off to work, we get a quick glimpse of the hustle and bustle of New Orleans as it was in the 1920s, full of life and culture. The newspaper scene when Naveen gets off the boat, April 1926. However, it soon becomes apparent that Tiana is much too focused on her job to really take part in anything non-work related. She's seen turning down invitations to social events from her friends in favor of working extra shifts. She's a determined and hardworking young woman that sacrifices her own happiness to reach her dream. While waiting tables, her best friend Charlotte, who became all grown up like Tiana, arrives with exciting news. Prince Naveen from the faraway country of Moldonia, Italy, has arrived in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. He will be staying with the LaBouffes, and Big Daddy hopes that Naveen and Charlotte will hit it off so the two can wed. Charlotte is thrilled at the thought of marrying a prince and pays Tiana an immense quantity of money to whip up some man-catching beignets for the prince's welcome party in order to impress him. After accepting the payment, Tiana finally has enough money for a down payment on a rundown sugar mill she plans on turning into her restaurant. Despite her mother's concerns in her workaholic ways and her mentioning that her father still had his family's love, even though he did not make his dream come true, along with her desire for her daughter to get married and possibly have kids, Tiana still prefers to keep on going with her desire towards her dream, saying that she's almost there. Meanwhile, Prince Naveen and his butler, Lawrence, arrive in New Orleans. Naveen is entranced by the New Orleans music and culture and women. He definitely lives a playboy lifestyle. We quickly learn that, though he is royalty, Naveen's parents have cut him off financially, and that his only choice is to marry a rich woman or get a job. Of course, Naveen would never dream of lifting a finger himself, and instead hopes to marry Charlotte and inherit some of her fortunes. As Naveen and Lawrence wander the streets, following a commotion the prince started with some music performers, they are encountered by the shady Dr. Facilier, also known as the Shadow Man, who invites them to his voodoo shop, where they learn about his powers and his friends on the other side. Jealous of the La Bouffe fortune and power, the Shadow Man takes advantage of the prince's gullibility and Lawrence's resentment of his master to help in his plot to take over New Orleans. He turns Naveen into a frog and, using a magical talisman, turns Lawrence into an exact copy of Prince Naveen, though his eye color and voice do not change into Naveen's. The plan is for Lawrence, as Naveen, to marry Charlotte, get her money, and share it with the Shadow Man, who plans on killing Big Daddy and using his fortune to control the city. That night, at the masquerade party, Naveen, Lawrence in disguise, arrives and immediately sweeps Charlotte off her feet. She is clearly enraptured by the idea of marrying a prince. Meanwhile, Tiana discovers that someone has outbid her on the old building. If she can't get the money in 3 days, she'll lose any hope of achieving her and her father's dream. Feeling hopeless, Tiana goes out onto the balcony and makes another wish upon the evening star. It is here that, under the stars, a talking frog comes to her who turns out to be the real Prince Naveen. Naveen mistakes her for a princess due to her masquerade costume Charlotte lent after her original costume got messy in a mishap, and tells her that if she kisses him, he will become human again, and then he will give her anything she wants in return. Thinking of her beloved restaurant, Tiana reluctantly kisses Naveen, creating a big flash of magic. Naveen then looks at himself, only to sigh in disappointment upon seeing that he's still a frog. Then looks down and sees Tiana's dress on the floor while she was trying to get out of it. Tiana managed to get out of her dress and told Naveen that she didn't look much different, asked him how she got there and why she was in the middle of her dress. Then he saw that his hand was green, and he looked in the mirror and discovered that he had turned into a frog. In great panic and anger, she jumps onto the table to Naveen and attacks him, resulting in them getting launched out of the room and landing in the party. Chaos ensues as they end up in Charlotte's dress and are chased away by her dog, Stella, and avoid bumping into several party guests. During Tiana and Naveen's runaway, they are spotted by Lawrence and the Shadow Man, who then head back to the guest house where they left Naveen and see that he really has escaped. Tiana and Naveen have a rough first night as frogs, as they are nearly eaten by a group of alligators and forced into hiding in an old tree trunk, arguing the entire time, of course. Her hard-working, no-nonsense personality and his lazy and carefree nature do not mesh well. The next day, Tiana builds a tiny raft, throws an acorn at Naveen to wake him up, and tells him that they must get back to New Orleans, track down the Shadow Man, and break the spell over them. Once they begin to leave, they are encountered by another enormous gator named Luis. At first, they fear he will eat them, but soon learn that Luis is a gentle giant who loves jazz music and dreams of playing the trumpet in a jazz band. But it's never worked out for him. Cue hysterical flashback of Luis jumping onto a paddle boat to try joining in a band before escaping when being screamed and shot at by the terrified humans. When they explain their situation to Luis, he tells them they should visit Mama Odie, the voodoo queen of the bayou. At first, he's reluctant to show them the way, but Naveen cleverly convinces him to come, implying that Mama Odie may be able to turn Louis human and help make his dream come true. As they journey through the bayou, the three meet up with Raymond, also known as Ray, a Cajun firefly. He takes the trio down the bayou with some help from the rest of his firefly family. Along the way, he reveals that he is in love with a beautiful firefly named Evangeline. Tiana and Naveen get captured by Reggie, Darnell, and Two Fingers, who are looking for some frogs to make a frog-leg dinner out of, only to evade and escape them. As the group eats some swamp gumbo, whipped up by Tiana, Ray spots and shows the others Evangeline shining brightly in the sky. They quickly realize that Evangeline is not a firefly, but is actually the evening star. However, none of them have the heart to tell Ray the truth, as he sings a beautiful love song for his Evangeline. As Ray serenades the star, Naveen convinces Tiana to dance with him, which ends with the two nearly kissing. And it quickly becomes clear that the two are starting to fall for one another. Back in New Orleans, the imposter Naveen, Lawrence, has finally proposed to Charlotte, who is positively delighted. She proclaims that the two will be married that night at the big Mardi Gras parade and skips off to make wedding plans. While she is gone, the Shadow Man then shows up and sees that the magic talisman is out of Naveen's blood. The spell that makes Lawrence look like Naveen finishes wearing off. The two men need to bring him back and get more of his blood for the talisman to start working again. The Shadow Man has no choice but to call on his friends on the other side, who, as it turns out, are shadow demons besides the masks, voodoo dolls, and shrunken heads. He sends them out to find Naveen and bring him back alive and healthy. Early that evening, back in the bayou, Naveen, Tiana, Ray, and Louis finally find the very old and very blind Mama Odie. Though she seems to be somewhat senile at first, she gives them all good advice. They must dig a little deeper to find out what's really important. They explain that they want to be human again, but she insists that it's not what they want. It's what they need that matters. Naveen sees that what he needs is to be with Tiana. On the other hand, Tiana is too blinded by her desire to live out her dream to see that there is something more important right in front of her. Mama Odie explains that the only way for the two of them to become human again is for Naveen to kiss a princess. They quickly realize that this means Charlotte, whose father had been crowned as king of Mardi Gras, making her the princess. The plan is for Naveen to kiss Charlotte before midnight, while she is still a princess, in order to turn himself and Tiana human again, marry her, and buy Tiana her restaurant, just as he promised her when she first gave him a kiss. Leaving Mama Odie profusely, the four friends head out to the river to find their way back to New Orleans. They hitch a ride aboard a paddle boat. Everyone thinks Louis is wearing a very realistic alligator costume for Mardi Gras and invite him to join the band. And Naveen quickly confides to Ray his plan to propose to Tiana that very night out of his love for her. He proudly proclaims that he won't marry Charlotte anymore, and he'll find another way, such as getting 1 or 2 jobs, maybe 3, to help keep his promise to Tiana and get her restaurant. He sets up a beautiful candle-lit dinner, one giant candle, since they're still frog-sized, and makes several feeble attempts to express his feelings for her, but is clearly nervous and flustered. Before he can get the words out, the boat passes the old sugar mill, distracting Tiana. She starts talking once again about her dream, and Naveen feels that she really cares more about her restaurant than about him. He knows that he will never be able to give her the money for her restaurant unless he marries Charlotte. So he gives up his plan to propose and instead sets his mind on getting back to Charlotte to help make Tiana's dream come true. When he leaves to fetch Louis and Ray, Tiana admits her dilemma of her love for Naveen and him still needing to marry Charlotte to get her the money for her restaurant to Evangeline and asks what she can do, begging her to give her an answer. Before the group arrives in New Orleans, Naveen is captured by the Shadow Man's voodoo friends, unbeknownst to his companions. After he is gone, when they finally arrive at Mardi Gras, Ray accidentally reveals to Tiana in his anticipating excitement for her accepting Naveen's proposal that Naveen truly loves her and plans on marrying her. Tiana realizes that this is what she truly wants and rushes off into the crowd to find him. However, when she reaches the parade, she sees Charlotte standing beside the fake Naveen, wearing the newly replenished talisman, preparing to marry him. Tiana misunderstands, thinking he has already kissed her and become human, and runs off to the cemetery alone. Ray follows her and tries to console her, but Tiana angrily snaps and hurts Ray by calling Evangeline nothing more than a star that is millions of miles away from him, and that he needs to open his eyes to the truth before he gets hurt, as she did. Still not convinced, Ray rushes back to the Mardi Gras parade and finds Frog Naveen, who has been kept prisoner in a locked box by Lawrence. After Naveen gets released thanks to Ray, he stops the wedding by jumping onto the imposter and tugging the talisman hard to knock him off the float. Lawrence loses the talisman and is returned to his true form. Realizing its significance, Ray steals the voodoo talisman and flies away with it. Furious, the Shadow Man summons the shadows to chase Ray all the way to the cemetery to retrieve the talisman, with Lawrence staying out of sight under his order while holding Naveen captive. Ray finally meets up with Tiana and gives her the talisman, telling her the Naveen they saw with Charlotte is not really him, and making her promise to keep it out of the Shadow Man's possession when they saw the shadows coming for the talisman. She hops away with it, while Ray stays behind to destroy as many shadows as possible. With his light, he kills a few of them. The Shadow Man knocks Ray to the ground and coldly steps on him without a second thought, before wearing a disgusted expression and casually walks off. A few seconds later, Louis comes running, calling for Ray, but finds the Firefly lying on the ground, mortally wounded. The shadows and the Shadow Man continue chasing Tiana before finally cornering her, but when she threatens to break the talisman into 1,000,000 pieces, the Shadow Man casts an enchantment on her, causing her to look human again, and changes the setting to her dream restaurant. She thinks she sees Naveen playing the ukulele in the corner of the room, but when the man turns around, she sees it isn't, and is disappointed. The Shadow Man tries to convince Tiana to hand over the talisman by offering to make her a deal, promising the restaurant and becoming a human again. When she refuses to, he brings up memories of her sacrifices and people doubting her abilities. Finally, he shows her the memory of how her father worked hard but failed to get enough money for a restaurant. He tells her that if she gives him the talisman, he'll turn her back into a human and give her everything she's ever dreamed of. Everything she and her father always wanted. Tiana hesitates for a moment, but her eyes light up in realization, and she explains that while it's true her father never got what he wanted, he had what he needed. He had love, and he never lost sight of what was really important, and she'll never do the same too. Tiana throws the talisman to the ground, but it's snatched up by the Shadow Man's own shadow, and the illusion immediately disappears. The Shadow Man cackles, transforms Tiana back into a frog, and tells her that she should have taken his deal, but Tiana takes the talisman back using her tongue and shatters it into pieces. He is horrified and frets how he won't be able to pay back his debt. The talisman's broken state greatly angers the voodoo spirits, who come out to give the Shadow Man his punishment. Masks come out of the stone heads asking if he's ready, which he replies that he isn't. Shrunken heads appear and voodoo dolls climb out of the ground. In terror, the Shadow Man says that he has lots more plans and still has Naveen locked away, making Tiana realize that Ray was telling the truth about the Naveen they saw with Charlotte. A shadow demon that came from inside an enormous mask drags in the Shadow Man's shadow, which in turn brings along the hysterical witch doctor himself into the voodoo world to sacrifice his soul as punishment for his unpaid debt, with his terrified face engraved on a tombstone to indicate his death, much to Tiana's horror. After the Shadow Man's fate is sealed, Tiana heads back to the parade, where she sees Naveen talking to Charlotte while the bumbling Lawrence was arrested and sent to the parish prison after he's been revealed to be a fraud. Naveen explains to Charlotte what happened to him and that if she kisses him before midnight, which is mere minutes away, he will become human again, and he will marry her. His only condition is that Charlotte has to give Tiana the money she needs for her restaurant, and in the process, he calls her his Evangeline, making her feel deeply touched. Once she stops Charlotte and Naveen from making the kiss by calling out to the two, Tiana hops out of the shadows and confesses her love for Naveen, telling him that she'd rather not have her restaurant without him. Naveen reciprocates her love in return, and the two share a romantic moment of their proclaimed love. Charlotte is moved to tears that her friend is finally living out the fairy tale she has always dreamed of, and agrees to kiss Naveen for Tiana, so they can both be human again and marry each other. She holds Naveen in her hands and leans in for the kiss, but it's too late. Midnight has come, and though she kisses him again and again, nothing happens as Charlotte is no longer a princess. Before anything else can be said between the now content Tiana and Naveen, Louis rushes to them, holding a dying Ray in his hands. He lays Ray on the ground, and he turns to Tiana and Naveen, asking them why they're still frogs, and they softly reply to him that the two of them are staying that way and together, thanks in part to him. Ray gives a weak smile, saying that he likes the latter, and Evangeline does too. His eyes slowly close, and he passes away in peace as his light slowly flickers out. His three sad friends bring him back to the bayou for a funeral with his family. After they place his tiny body in a leaf with 2 flowers, Naveen and Tiana placed in and push it out across the water, everyone starts to gasp and look up at the sky as a bright white light shines down from above. Another star has appeared beside Evangeline, shining just as brightly. Everyone starts to cheer because they can see that Ray finally got his wish to be with Evangeline at last. The funeral then fades away to a wedding as animals from the entire bayou gather together to see Mama Odie officiate Naveen and Tiana's wedding ceremony. After she pronounces them frog and wife, they share a kiss and turn back into humans. Mama Odie laughs as the two figure out that by becoming Naveen's wife, Tiana became a princess, and thus kissing each other broke the spell. The two return to New Orleans, where they have a second wedding ceremony, then buy the old sugar mill from the real estate agents with some help from Louis, and work together, fixing it up and eventually turning it into Tiana's Palace, a very successful upscale restaurant. We see Tiana and Naveen happily serving tables as Louis the Gator entertains the guests on stage with his trumpet and a band he performed with at the Mardi Gras parade, finally living his own dream. Tiana and Naveen go up to the roof, where they dance together and share a kiss beneath the stars. Tiana sings, "Dreams do come true in New Orleans," while Ray and Evangeline continue to shine brightly together in the night sky above as the movie closes. The opening scenes of Disney's The Princess and the Frog are like a cool shower after a long and sweaty day. This is what classic animation once was like. No 3D, no glasses, no extra ticket charge, no frantic frenzies of meaningless action, and good gravy, a story, characters, a plot. It's set in a particular time and place, and it uses, calm me down here, lovingly hand-drawn animation that proceeds at a human pace instead of racing with odd smoothness. I'm just going to stand here and let it pour over me. The movie, which is sweet and entertaining, doesn't quite live up to those opening scenes. But it's a demonstration that the Walt Disney Studio still shelters animators who know how to make a movie like that, in an age when too many animated films are like fast food after memories of Mom's pot roast. My guess is that afterward, the poor kids won't feel quite so battered by input overload. The film dances on the screen and doesn't come into the audience and shake you to make you like it. The story is set mostly in an African-American community in New Orleans, America's most piquant city, before and after World War I. We meet a young girl named Tiana, who is cherished by her mother Eudora, voice of Oprah Winfrey, and father James, Terrence Howard. Her mom is a seamstress, her dad a hard-working restaurant owner who stirs up a mighty gumbo. He goes off to the army and doesn't return. For Tiana as an adult Anika Noni Rose, life is a struggle, but she holds fast to her dream of opening a restaurant and serving up her dad's gumbo with just a soup con more red sauce. This is all shown in flowing, atmospheric animation and acted with fetching voices, but the songs by Randy Newman are, I don't know, do you think he's getting sort of Randy Newman'd out? And the absence of a couple of terrific musical numbers is noticeable, I think, although younger viewers will probably be drawn into this story. You've heard it before. A princess kisses a frog, and it turns into a handsome Prince Charming. But what if instead she turns into a frog? Spoiler, that's what happens. So now Tiana and the visiting Prince Naveen of Malvonia, Bruno Campos, are both amphibians, although, of course, they retain all of their moral principles and do not perform that act of which frogs are more fond than anything apart from croaking and eating flies. They're captives of a spell cast by the evil voodoo villain Dr. Facilier, Keith David. But life in the swamp is enlivened by two friends, Lewis, Michael Leon Woolley, an alligator who plays jazz saxophone, and Ray, Jim Cummings, a firefly who fills the Jiminy Cricket slot. They seek the occult Mama Odie, Jennifer Lewis, who may have the power to offset Facilier, and whether Tiana and Prince Naveen are restored and settle down to happy lives of slurping gumbo, I will leave for you to discover. It is notable that this is Disney's first animated feature since Song of the South, 1946, to feature African-American characters. And if the studio really never is going to release that film on DVD, which seems more innocent by the day, perhaps they could have lifted Zippity-Doo-Dah from it and plugged that song in here. Though the principal characters are all black, other than the rich man Big Daddy and the prince, who is of undetermined ethnicity, race is not an issue because Disney adroitly sidesteps all the realities of being a poor girl in New Orleans in the early 1920s. Just as well, I suppose. The Princess and the Frog inspires memories of Disney's golden age. It doesn't quite live up to, as I've said, but it's sprightly and high-spirited and will allow kids to enjoy it without visually assaulting them. There has been a lot of talk about Disney's first black princess. Several critical race theorists have weighed in negatively about both the fact that the main character, Tiana, is not in fact a princess, and her would-be Prince Charming is not a man of color. People looking deeper also questioned the racial narratives behind making her a cook and her mother a seamstress. And while critical race theorists were tearing apart the not-so-hidden race messages of the movie, white feminist bloggers and white mommy bloggers began to weigh in about the problematic nature of the princess fantasy Disney sells to little girls. While their critique joined a long line of criticism coming out of the multiculturalism movement in early childhood education and the feminist literary movement, the amount and consistency of these critiques seemed suspect, given that white feminists were writing so avidly about debunking princesses right when the first black one in Disney history came along. The hype from both camps seemed destined to doom this movie to limited release and even more limited market success. Those of us who teach media were particularly wary of the implications, since the failure of a black princess would be just as racialized as the discussion surrounding her. It was with this reticence in mind that I and a few of my black academic friends went to see The Princess and the Frog this afternoon. And for all the hype surrounding and disparaging the film, both I and the mostly child audience of the film were pleasantly surprised. Myths and facts. Before beginning a proper review, it seems only fair to get some of the misinformation surrounding the film out of the way. Myth. Tiana is not a princess, and she is the only non-princess in Disney princess lore. Fact. Some of Disney's most beloved princesses have taken the same route from obscurity to princess that Tiana takes in this film. Cinderella and Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Like these women, Tiana starts out as an ordinary young girl and becomes a princess through marrying a prince. However, this does not excuse the rewriting of the fairy tale in a way that seemingly punishes Tiana for reaching above her station in life, a comment that is actually made to her in a different context in the film. Myth, the Prince Naveen is white. Fact, Prince Naveen is from Maldonia, a fictional place that allows Disney to sidestep the race issue. Naveen's skin is light brown, as is that of his parents, the king and queen. He is also voiced by Bruno Campos, a Brazilian-born actor living in the U.S. who has made a name for himself playing mostly Latino characters. Myth, Tiana is a cook, implied, a servant for rich white folks. Fact, Tiana is an aspiring restaurateur and waitress who works for a Black-owned cafe. She does make bonnets for her childhood friend Charlotte's Mardi Gras party, it provides her with the down payment for her restaurant. Myth. This is another antiquated princess narrative from Disney that encourages girls to want to be pretty and married instead of successful in their own right. Fact. Tiana's father teaches her that she should dare to dream, but always follow it up with hard work, and she even sings a song about hard work as one of her few songs in the film. While the implications are racialized in many ways, they run counter to a sexist princess narrative. While she does consider giving up her dream of a restaurant for Prince Naveen, which is problematic, ultimately she works toward having both even when both seem out of reach. And as my mom pointed out last night on the phone, Tiana does not even want to be a princess. Her friend Charlotte does, and Charlotte's pursuit of princess status is a running joke in the film. Tiana and her friend Charlotte LaBouffe grow up together in New Orleans, dreaming of fairy tales and happy endings. Though their lives intersect through the skilled service work that Tiana's mother does for the LaBouffe family and the resulting friendship between the girls, they live two very different lives. When they reach young adulthood, Tiana wants to fulfill her dream of owning a restaurant that will not only showcase her cooking, but also the music of New Orleans, and bring the community together from all walks of life. Charlotte wants to be a princess, and as their two dreams intersect, both girls find themselves coming face to face with a prince. Tiana's journey transforms her into a frog, where she and her frog prince endure the trials of both swamp and Vodun to find what their true heart's desires are and how to be better people. Race and gender and class meanings. Tiana lives in a seemingly lower middle-class neighborhood with her doting father and mother. Her father, a World War I veteran, works multiple jobs in order to save for a restaurant and teaches Tiana how to cook. He dies before he is able to afford the restaurant, but not before he passes the dream on to his daughter. Both he and Tiana's mother also teach her the value of hard work and kindness. Charlotte LaBouffe, on the other hand, is born rich and spoiled near rotten by her father, Big Daddy. She has an endless supply of princess dresses for dress-up made by Tiana's mother and gets everything she asks for: puppies, kitties, parties, etc. As both a child and a young adult, Charlotte is a ridiculous caricature of former Disney princesses, cherub-cheeked, swathed in pink, vacuous, and prince-obsessed. She is so intent on marrying a prince that she misses all the signs that she is about to marry a fraud and even resigns herself to wait for a 6-year-old to come of age so she can marry him. A joke that written out raises all kinds of flags. While she is clearly a parody of the old princess myth that is Disney's bread and butter, she is also a troubling racial character. In many ways, it seems as though the writers of The Princess and the Frog are being less satirical, with Charlotte's dewy pink skin and bright blonde hair wrapped around a package of cluelessness, ignorance, and "someday my prince will come," and are more likely unable to imagine how to lift up Tiana as the alternative, or more authentic, princess figure without making her white counterpart a joke. Rather than critique the non-existent princess narrative of Tiana's storyline, mainstream feminists should move into the realm of intersectionality and question why this binary exists. How does it perpetuate a failure of sisterhood across race by relying on a one-up, one-down model in which one group of women will always be a joke? And how is that joke undermined by race and class narratives that have Charlotte achieving her goal of princess at various stages of the film, while Tiana is reduced to a mucus-producing frog? Even at a costume ball where Charlotte is clearly dressed as Cinderella, Tiana wears the costume of a simple maidservant, as if even in her wildest dreams there is no room for her at the princess table, which runs counter to the point of the movie or to the dreams of success and community building that are central to Tiana's character. That said, Tiana and Charlotte do manage to stand up for one another in this film. When Tiana is literally put in her place by two white male realtors and subsequently crashes into her Binette display, ending up on the ground covered in food, Charlotte comes out of her cloud of princess dreams long enough to help Tiana up and get her a real princess costume to wear from her collection. And when Prince Naveen tells Charlotte that he is really in love with Tiana, but will marry her anyway to help Tiana get her restaurant. Charlotte refuses the deal and instead offers to help the lovers reunite because she wants Tiana to be happy. This kind of friendship, though problematic in its class and cluelessness, is still more than we are often offered in relationships between rich white women and working-class black ones who have at one time or another worked for them, especially when a man is involved. As for Tiana, she finds Charlotte's dreams of becoming a princess and her class privilege blinding her to how out of proportion her life is amusing. She wants her friend to be truly happy and actually helps her to find a prince. When she and Prince Naveen start to have feelings for one another, Tiana does her best to ward them off, out of loyalty to Charlotte. And again, while we can question the way these gendered decisions are raced and classed, I think it is important to recognize a plot point that encourages girls to look out for one another in a world where most movies and music, Taylor Swift, Avril Lavigne, etc., encourage tweens to compete with one another and steal each other's boyfriends/love interests. Disney made a point of telling everyone how much effort they put into learning and recreating New Orleans culture for this film. In many ways, this is where they get race really right, while also still perpetuating the one-up, one-down racial narrative mentioned above. Both the jovial pomposity of Big Daddy LaBeouf and the dignity of Tiana's family ring true to Nola. Disney gives us an African-American community infused with both good and bad Vodun, upper, middle, and working-class people, and neighborhoods with that typical New Orleans connectivity. The diversity amongst the black community in this film is probably the best Disney has offered, and certainly more than most young people will get in children's programming not made for public-funded television. While I initially balked at Mama Odie's inhuman-looking facial features, Movie Line actually has a post referring to her looks as the mascot for popular turn-of-the-century pantry product, Mama Odie's Sambo Cakes and Waffle Batter. Her character's mix of humor and age-sometimes saged advice is spot on. Almost everyone in the black community, at least those with Southern roots or childhoods lived in long-time black communities, knows an elder like Mama Odie. She is also a clear counterpoint to the Shadow Man at the core of the story. Where he represents those who do evil with Vodun, Mama Odie only uses her connection to the spirit world for good and guidance. Her character is a critical intervention to the existing negative image of Vodun in popular media. In the audience in which I watched the film, she also helped take some of the scary out of the movie for young viewers. My only real complaint about Mama Odie is Disney's lazy recycling of Sir Hiss as Mama Odie's companion, a creature she tongue kisses at one point, and who facilitates jokes about her failing eyesight at others. There are very few white people in this movie. Their diversity is less recognizable as most are upper class and also caricatures. While some moments, like the racist and classist interaction Tiana has with her potential realtors, ring true, others seem to buy into the binary mentioned above. Perhaps the most complexity amongst the white people in the film comes from Prince Naveen's servant, Lawrence. Like typical Disney manservants, Lawrence begins the movie muddling along, trying to balance all of the prince's needs, while being largely taken for granted. Unlike many of his predecessors, however, when Lawrence is given the chance to pass as Prince Naveen and gain wealth and power for himself, his kind-hearted scolding and hard-working demeanor gives way to class antagonism and bitterness. Lawrence and Dr. Facilier, the Shadow Man, are two sides of the same coin. Both men are working-class people who resent the easy life of the rich and want an even easier solution to rectify their class status. Both have allowed bitterness based on actual class antagonism as well as their own failure to challenge it, to taint the way they see the world and the people around them. And both have made deadly deals to take what they are unwilling to work for. While this provides some of the strongest class critique Disney has offered us in similar fairy tales, Robin Hood aside, it also perpetuates the bootstraps myth that permeates the film. The idea that hard work alone will change the class structure, particularly in New Orleans, is ridiculous, and Disney does very little to really question the problem while providing us a semblance of critique. Both the Cajun Fireflies and Tiana's family represent the other end of the working class spectrum in the film. Both are hardworking and loyal, However, they do represent a return to more simplistic versions of the noble poor that often permeate Disney films. Worse, the Cajun Fireflies all have some version of crooked teeth or tooth decay that levels some of the worst stereotypes of working-class whites in the bayou. Yet they are also really compelling characters. For one of them, there is a Bambi's mother moment that left the children in the audience where I saw the film in tears. At least one set of young girls asked their mother to leave the theater before the Bambi moment, anticipating its arrival. And I overheard one of them say, "This is going to make me cry. I want to go. I want to go right now." Perhaps the only real failures in this film are sadly both the music and an ongoing Sarjay Bartman moment. The songs in this movie range from sophisticated to overly simplistic in musical style. The kids in the audience, who were the majority, only began to sing along once, and at least once were completely disinterested in the music. I can't tell if this is a testament to Disney choosing a more sophisticated musical and image palette for certain sequences, or a testament to the radical changes in NOLA's music scene as a result of Katrina. What I do know is for a studio that makes a living on the blending of music and image, this movie's sometimes failure to resonate is telling. There is also a running big butt joke in this film. Lawrence is a portly servant whose large features are proportionate when white. When he transforms into our brown prince, however, there are moments when the magic stops working, and Lawrence's butt expands to ridiculous proportions in comparison to the rest of his body. His big butt is meant to make us laugh, and is a key sign that he is unfit and/or an imposter. Later, a Cajun Firefly will sing a song about his big glow-in-the-dark butt and make constant reference to it. While his Cajun identity means that he is to be read white, and his light is essential to helping them get through the swamp in the dark, the butt jokes are once again meant to mark him as backward, lower class, less educated, etc. Not only is the linking of phenotype and legitimacy our problem in general, but the particular reference to big butts that has not appeared in any other Disney film seems like an unavoidably glaring stereotype tied back to comedic renderings of Sarjay Bartman. As always, there are also no queer characters in this movie. Instead, Disney offers us a homophobic joke at the beginning of the film. Tiana is riding the streetcar when her seatmate decides she is so pretty he wants to give her a flower. When he turns to get the flower, she exits the streetcar, leaving her seatmate to turn around, only to seemingly offer the flower to a large man standing beside Tiana's seat. The man frowns with all the homophobia a non-speaking cartoon can, and the other man shrinks back in his seat. I'm unclear why filmmakers continue to use brief and completely unrelated oppressive jokes as filler in their films, but it is not only wrong, but completely unnecessary to telling the story. Gives us real gay characters, or none at all, please. Despite my misgivings about this movie, I thoroughly enjoyed The Princess and the Frog. What it gets right, it gets really right, and what it gets wrong is in general minor, though noteworthy. Despite the largely white feminist criticism of the film as some wishy-washy princess daydream, Disney has in fact offered us a strong, independent woman who never gives up her own dreams of success for stereotypical gendered ones of marriage and princess status. Tiana becomes a princess by default, not by design, and the film is very clear about her real dreams and her real accomplishments. Unlike other Disney princesses, Tiana saves the prince, not the other way around. On that level, this is a good film for young girls looking for ways to become empowered women. Ultimately, I was moved by the jabber, cried over Bambi's mom, and rooted for Tiana along with all of the young ones in the theater. And when the film was over, every single one of those children and many of their jabber clapped. Equally important for me, some young black girls walked out of the theater before me, and my black female academic cohort got up to leave. They looked at us with the jabber of excitement from the film still on their faces. For a brief moment, they stopped and stared, and then jabber. While I count Disney's Black Princess as significant in the shift to ending racism in this country, right up there with the black president who minimizes or avoids discussing race, it was still a very gibber moment. The Princess and the Frog is open in wide release now. You can see it at most theaters. If you haven't seen it yet, Sea of the Disparaging on the internet, you should go and then stop by here and tell me what you think. The Princess and the Frog is one of those filling my gaps movies I haven't seen until now. One of the rare exceptions for modern Disney animation that was escaping me throughout the years. And now I can finally cross it off my list of shame. Which I am pleased about because this is a lovely story, a great film that's just so close to being a great one. But let's start from the beginning. Since this is based on a well-known fairy tale, albeit with one twist, I will jabber a tiny bit of the main plot to explain my biggest issue with this film. They only gave us the real Tiana for about 20 minutes. Exactly. In most of the jabber, we spend time with her being one of the titular frogs. And even though I appreciated this gibber, that it's not just the prince who needs to turn back, but also her, I can't help but feel cheated. The first African-American princess. But not only that, with her agenda, she really wants to buy and run her own restaurant. And yet, for most of the film, we are gibber at the frog. And look, as far as frogs go, it's a pretty jabber-looking frog. I am not going to lie. I am not saying I would have anything with a frog. All I am saying is, if I must have something with a frog, what are we gibber about again? Oh, anyway, for some reason, it really gibber me. We did not get to enjoy Tiana in her human form for longer. Come to think of it, I think that's a jabber complaint, as I need to admit, I am a man. Also a white man, so there is that. And even I have noticed how little time we get to spend with human jabber. Now, imagine how some little kid will feel going to see a movie where they finally see somebody who looks like them on the jabber in the main role, has, not just being wacky sidekick or sassy friend, to only see the human version of them for a quite limited amount of the screen time. All I am saying, jabber matters. The voice acting was pretty great. I need to compliment Anika Noni Rose, as she did well and has a beautiful voice, not only for talking but singing, as all actors actually sang their parts too. I need to be honest, everybody else did a decent enough job, but nobody except John Goodman stood out for me. I know what you are thinking. Hey, great to see your values talking about representation and stuff. I have just to say one of two people who stood out was a stereotypical white guy. Look, you might have a point, but I honestly think if I wasn't so familiar with his voice, even he wouldn't have stood out as much. Come to think of it, that might have been purposeful, as even though this movie has the mighty Oprah Winfrey included in the voice cast, I didn't know about it until the credits rolled. I was so focused on our main heroine, mesmerized with her voice, I ignored everybody else. I was enjoying the story, so I didn't care to ask myself, why don't I recognize any of these voices except John Goodman? And that's a pretty great thing if you ask me, as I don't measure the quality of any movie by how many famous people I recognize appear in it, but based on how invested I am into the story itself. Screenplay by Ron Clements, John Muser, Rob Edwards, story by Ron Clements, John Muser, Gregor Jabber Orland, based on The Frog Prince by Ed Baker, The Frog Prince by Brothers Grimm, produced by Peter DeLeader, starring Anika Noni Rose, Bruno Campos, Lewis, Oprah Winfrey, Terrence Howard, John Goodman, edited by JRA, music by Randy. Disney Jabber Motion Pictures release dates November 25, 2009 in Los Angeles and New York City. December Jibber 2009 in United States, running time 97 minutes, country United States, language English, budget Jabber million, box office $271 million. So guys, this is the review of The Princess and the Frog movie, and video. Please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.